Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Go-Go Power Rangers issue number 9. This is the first one officially in the thick of Shattered Grid. Of course, we got a teaser at the end of the last issue, which was just like a panel of, you know, Ranger Slayer and Finster number 5 or whatever his name is. First off, just real quick, I apologize if the lighting seems kind of dimmer. It seems kind of okay, I'm looking at it right now, but it is just kind of dimmer today because it's been a rainy couple of days, but I didn't want to have to wait to film this because I wasn't sure how long the rain is going to last. I could have checked the weather, but don't tell me what to do. Anyway, so I still haven't been covering the individual issues of Go-Go Power Rangers. I might still do a retrospective series, but, you know, if you don't know, it's basically like a day in the life look at the early days of the team, with the large storylines having to deal with the more personal aspects. There's definitely fights and stuff, but it's mainly about like their personal stories and in their lives, both dealing with, you know, how it relates to being a ranger and how it doesn't. And that definitely continues here. And it's actually really quite good. There's a lot of neat stuff in it. It's especially kind of cool because, like, in MMPR, we really didn't get very much character growth or development. All we did was, like, let's fight for a monster, and then let's fight for charity, and, like, just, like, these really unrealistic, like, caricatures. And so to actually get an inside look at more interesting versions of these characters is cool. Because, like, I initially rolled my eyes when the series came out. You know, I was like, another MMPR comic, but it's pretty good. Like, would I maybe trade this for, like, a just as well done comic on any other series? Probably. But for what it is, it's pretty good. So that's what I wanted to say about this. But this one is special because it is diving into Shattered Grid. And it's going to be interesting for the repercussions both for this series and the overall narrative, because as far as I know, I'm like 99% sure it's been confirmed or assumed that this is, you know, the prequel timeline to the main Boom timeline. So Ranger Slayer arriving and messing with things, I'm curious how that'll affect it. Whether Go-Go will essentially split off into a similar yet different timeline, which might give them a little more creative freedom down the line, or maybe we'll just see like this timeline catch up to him, meaning like in the main timeline, you know, in the main comic we could see them already being like, oh yeah, now all of a sudden I remember when Ranger Slayer attacked us back then. So it depends on how they're going to play the time travel. They could do it like that, where it just all of a sudden catches up with their memory or something like that, or it just splits off into a separate timeline. I've seen a couple people theorize that the Go-Go timeline is actually the Drakon timeline before Tommy turned evil, but I mean, maybe that'll end up being true, but it doesn't seem like it right now, because especially in this storyline where Ranger Slayer arrives here in Go-Go Power Rangers because she believes that, oh, this is the timeline where Drakon's been kidnapped by the Rangers, and it seemingly is. She just arrived way too early, like in the way early days. She's like, oh crap, there's 5 of you. So yeah, that's interesting. So I'll be interested to see how that affects it, if they address it. I assume they will, just I don't know when it would be, but it makes things interesting to have this huge event that happens later in their Ranger careers happen, you know, intersect so early with the main timeline. And like some of the stuff, it's kind of classic Go-Go Power Rangers comic stuff, deals with the personal issues, because it actually is kind of funny because Go-Go Power Rangers' central character is almost Kim for like right now, in a way, for these first 9 issues, because one of the main storyline revolves around basically this other character. I think I remember his name's Matt, but I haven't had my muffin yet, Matt. But he's like, basically it looks at this idea of like, what if there was another member around like the Rangers friend group when they became Rangers? And it's interesting too, because they weren't all best friends like they were, you know, in MMPR. Like they were kind of separate. Some people were friends, some weren't, and they became more friends when it happened. But anyway, like it took a look at this interesting idea of what if there was another guy and he's kind of on the outside now because they all have the secret, and it was really tied into him and the consequences of having this other friend, and for Kim, a boyfriend that was part of it. And it really makes Kim seem like she has terrible luck. Like she has this boyfriend that gets kidnapped and replaced by Rita, and then her next boyfriend becomes the evil Green Ranger. Poor Kim. But yeah, so like she's been kind of the central storyline, and now that continues here with Ranger Slayer being a future version of Kim. And there's something I want to talk about with that at the very end, but it is, I think, some interesting stuff, because I see how they're playing it now with tying it into Kim's personal story in Go-Go Power Rangers, which is very true to like what the narrative of Go-Go Power Rangers is like, taking individual looks. There's also a weird scene with, not weird, but just, it feels out of place for now with Jason finding out his dad's been hiding some sort of sickness or something like that. And I don't think that's a weird storyline for Go-Go Power Rangers. It just seems weird to bring it up now. I'm interested to see how it in any way, like, thematically might tie into what's going on, but it seems like a storyline more for an everyday Go-Go Power Rangers storyline rather than, oh, let's just randomly have this side story during this event. I don't know, it just seemed weird. Like, just, like, this, now's not the time, guys. But yeah, there was some focus in this issue on Kim's parents getting a divorce, and it was kind of a funny scene to me where she was like reminiscing like, oh, I remember when my parents used to have fights in the car, and I never wanted to be like that, and look what I become. I'm like, yeah. Because she basically said, you know, I don't want to be a parent like that. I'm like, well, obviously I turn out like that because, you know, screaming parent, the equivalent is Ranger murderer. I don't know. I just thought it was a funny, almost a stretch of a connection to make. I get what they're going for, but like again, it did seem like a stretch. But yeah, and then present day Rita's kind of wanting to work with her. There's some interesting stuff with that. They tease the giant hybrid Zord at the end that came to the past with Kim, and she, you know, realizes she's in the wrong time. But it was honestly all pretty basic stuff. I mean, Ranger Slayer just showed up and fought off the enemies the Rangers were fighting and then fought them, and we got the Rangers wondering what's going on. So I'm curious to see how much they find out, how much this affects the timeline. That's kind of my main questions about it. It was a pretty solid start, but pretty basic. Like, basically, me just saying the word basic a lot, but exactly how I kind of assumed it would have played out, to be honest. So if I had to score it, I'd probably overall get like a 7.5. Like, it was solid, it was good, it was enjoyable, it just wasn't anything mind-blowing. Just real quick at the end, speaking about Ranger Slayer, I thought Kim was kind of a predictable and boring choice. Even though I can see where it's going now, like specifically tying it to this present day Kim and Go-Go, and I think there'll be some interesting stuff there, I still think it was kind of predictable. And my idea was, and you don't have to like this, I just wanted to voice this because I thought it was a good video to do it, is I would have liked to have seen it be Kat. Basically, not Kat from the Drakon timeline, but Kat from her own timeline that was basically super identical to the way we know Kat's story went, you know, basically being a mole, and then, you know, she gets turned good, and then Kim passes on the Ranger powers to her. But what if, in that timeline, her being turned good was all part of the ruse? She gets the powers, takes them, boom, takes out all the other Rangers, then she becomes Ranger Slayer, and then I liked the idea of Drakon traveling to that timeline and finding sort of a like-minded individual, and they join forces. I don't know, it's super fanficky, but I just thought it would have been cool because Kat and Tommy's storylines were so similar in that way, and that was one interesting aspect I always found about their relationship, was that they kind of connected because he understood what it was like to be like that, and sort of using that narrative I thought was cool, and also seeing a darker version of Kat. I've brought this up a couple times in like Twitter and stuff, and people are like, oh, it's too similar to Drakon's. I'm like, that's kind of the point. Like, I don't know, I just thought Kim was too safe of a choice, and I thought Kat would have been way more interesting given what we know about versions of her character, and that, you know, we've gotten to see little tastes of where the second generation MMPR team is. Like, we saw Aisha in the World of the Coin List, we saw versions of Adam in the Forever Black, so I thought it would be cool to see that. Again, it's just my own super fanficky idea, but I just thought it would have been more interesting. I definitely hope we get to see a version of Kat at some point, but I don't think where they're going with Ranger Slayer is uninteresting, just a little bit more predictable. But who knows what they have planned for other things. But anyway, that's about it for this one. Looking forward to the next Shattered Grid issue. I'm really been enjoying all this content sort of so close together. It's the worst part, again, is the wait for the next issue. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. It's Dawson Rider, signing out.